What will believers do after the 1,000-year reign of Christ for eternity? 1. Reigning doesn't always mean ruling over sin or conflict. We often associate reigning with solving problems, issuing commands, or maintaining order, but in eternity there's no sin, rebellion, or brokenness. So what are believers reigning over? In this perfect context, reigning may not mean control over others, but rather stewardship over creation, participating in God's authority and order, expressing His wisdom and creativity in a glorified universe. Think of it less like political power and more like royal purpose and meaningful responsibility. 2. The model of Eden, restored but glorified. In the Garden of Eden, before sin, Adam and Eve were told to rule over creation, Genesis 1:28. They weren't ruling over people or conflict, but caring for and managing God's creation with wisdom and love. In the new heaven and new earth, that original purpose is restored, but without the frustration or failure brought by sin. Our reign may involve exploring and tending to a vast, glorified creation, discovering God's wonders in ways we can't yet imagine, being co-creators in a redeemed world, maybe even designing, building, or naming things like Adam did. 3. A shared reign with Christ. Revelation 3:21. To the one who is victorious, I will give the right to sit with me on my throne, just as I was victorious and sat down with my Father on his throne. This isn't about dominating anything, but being invited into the intimacy, authority, and joy of Christ's eternal kingship. We reign with him, not apart from him. So in a perfect universe, reigning is relational with Christ and with others. It's a role of delight, not duty. It means participating in God's eternal plans, perhaps overseeing parts of his creation, not because they need fixing, but because we're part of a living, expanding kingdom. 4. Possibly expanding creation. Some theologians and writers like Randy Alcorn have wondered, could God's new creation be ever expanding? Might there be worlds to explore or realms of beauty, music, art, knowledge, and life that unfold eternally? Could we reign by helping steward and cultivate that never-ending creative glory? 1. What will our resurrection bodies be like? Key passage, 1 Corinthians 15:42-44 and 49. So is it with the resurrection of the dead? What is sown is perishable. What is raised is imperishable. It is sown in dishonour. It is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness. It is raised in power. It is sown a natural body. It is raised a spiritual body. Just as we have borne the image of the man of dust, we shall also bear the image of the man in heaven. Paul gives us a contrast: perishable, imperishable, no sickness, aging, or death; dishonour, glory, radiant and glorified; weakness, power, unlimited energy, no tiredness or fatigue; natural, spiritual, still physical, but empowered and perfected. 2. Jesus as the prototype. After his resurrection, Jesus had a glorified body, the first fruits of those who will rise, 1 Corinthians 15:20. From what we see, he could eat and drink, Luke 24:42-43. He had flesh and bones, Luke 24-39. He could be touched, John 20:27. He could appear and disappear instantly, Luke 24:31, John 20:19. He could move between heaven and earth, Acts 1:9. Our bodies will be like his. Philippians 3:21. 3. What might we be able to do? While Scripture doesn't give every detail, here's what our resurrection bodies may allow us to do. A. Travel instantly. Just as Jesus appeared in different places, we may have the ability to move freely across space, travel the new earth, or even beyond, possibly operate outside of time constraints as we know them. B. Experience creation fully. With glorified senses, we may hear, see, taste, and feel more vividly than ever before, enjoy beauty, music and colours that are currently beyond us, engage with frequencies and creation in its full glory without limitation. C. Create, build and explore. With bodies that don't tire, we might design and build new things, cities, gardens, art or music. Explore new realms of God's creation, never running out of energy or interest. D. Enjoy internal fellowship. Our perfected bodies will also mean no fear, pain, insecurity, or shame in relationships, deeper, richer connections with other believers, eternal friendships. 4. Free from all limitation, no disease or disability. Isaiah 35:5-6 hints at this even in the millennium. No fatigue, hunger, or sadness unless we choose to fast or reflect deeply for joy. No temptation or sin will be totally free, able to serve and enjoy God fully. 1. Eternal worship, not just singing, but living fully in God's presence. What worship actually is? Why would you want to worship God forever? Worship isn't just music or religious ritual, it's a state of being where our hearts, minds and actions are centered on God. Romans 12:1 says, "Present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship." In eternity, worship means full alignment with God. Our joy, purpose, creativity and work will all reflect His glory. Every action we take, whether creating, exploring, fellowshipping or resting, will be worship because we'll be doing it in perfect communion with Him. It's not about a never-ending church service. It's about becoming what we always were meant to be. 2. We were made to worship. It's built into our design. We all worship something. Even those who don't believe in God worship something. Success, beauty, fame, football, comfort, relationships. Why? Because human beings were designed to give themselves to something greater. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, "He has set eternity in human heart." This longing inside us for purpose, transcendence and belonging points to the fact that we were made to know God, reflect His image, be fully alive in His presence. Without Him, we end up worshipping lesser things, and it leaves us empty. Eternal worship is not about losing ourselves, it's about finding our truest selves in Him. 3. The pineal gland, the seat of spiritual perception. Now let's touch on the pineal gland, a fascinating part of our anatomy that's often called the third eye. What is it? A small endocrine gland located deep in the center of the brain. It produces melatonin, which regulates sleep and circadian rhythms. Interesting, it's light sensitive even though it's inside the brain. Why? It's spiritually significant. Many ancient cultures, and even some modern thinkers, considered the pineal gland the seat of spiritual perception or higher consciousness. It's been associated with intuition, dreaming and visions, deep meditation or spiritual awareness. In a biblical context, while Scripture doesn't mention the pineal gland by name, it does affirm that God designed our bodies to be spiritually aware. For example, Daniel had visions and spiritual insight beyond normal perception. Paul speaks of being caught up into the third heaven, 2 Corinthians 12:2-4, experiencing things beyond earthly comprehension. Jesus said the pure in heart will see God, Matthew 5:8, a deep spiritual vision. The pineal gland may be part of the hardware God placed in us to connect with Him as a biological echo of our spiritual design. When glorified, our whole being, mind, body and spirit will be fully activated to experience pure worship, joyful, unfiltered connection with God. Conclusion. Worship is the wholehearted yielding of our entire being to God. It is the awakening of our conscience in the presence of His holiness, the feeding of our minds with the richness of His truth, the refining of our imagination by the radiance of His beauty, the opening wide of our hearts to the depths of His love, the surrender of our will to the wisdom of His divine purpose. And all of this finds its expression in adoration, a sacred, reverent awe before the one who is worthy of all praise. True worship lifts us beyond ourselves. It rescues us from the prison of self-centeredness and draws us into the glorious freedom of a God-centered life. You were created not for isolation or aimlessness, but for relationship, deep, intimate communion with your Creator. This divine connection should be the highest priority of your life. When God takes first place in your heart, blessings follow, not merely in material things, but in peace, purpose and the joy of living as you were meant to. Because He loves you, God gently warns you of the dangers of straying from the path He designed for you, a path not of restriction, but of fulfillment, wholeness and eternal meaning.